In astrology circles, the full moon's kind of a big deal. And to most of us, it might feel like a big deal too. I mean, visually, it's big, it's expansive, it's glowing, it illuminates. Sometimes when you go outside at night during a full moon, it feels like you could sit down and read a book by its light. It certainly has an effect on our energy, which might feel a little bit more scattered and chaotic. Perhaps it's this characteristic that the full moon has of illuminating things that are often dark that causes this feeling of chaos and shift. It's a great time to see things a little bit differently. At the beginning of the lunar cycle, we start with a new moon, and that's complete darkness. There is no moon. That's when we plant our seeds, we set our intentions, maybe we make some plans, decide what our goals will be for this lunar cycle. Then when the full moon comes around, it gives us an opportunity to stop and pause and assess and see if we've been making any progress. But the real gift comes when we determine if we're not making progress, what could be standing in our way? How could we be doing better? And that's where the full moon comes in. It might shine its light on something that we don't normally see. Maybe it's an attitude or a belief or a habit that we have. Maybe that attitude or belief or habit has seemed pretty benign in the past. But now we might be able to see how it's standing in our way of achieving our goals. The energy of the full moon helps support this kind of activity. It's a really great time to become a little introspective, to turn your focus inward. Remember, you're not looking for things that are happening outside of you. You can't control that. You can't control everybody else, and you can't always control the world around you. But you do have some ability to look within and see what may be standing in your way internally. Today we'll be working with that. We'll start just by focusing very much on the body and on our practice. As a yoga instructor, I see a lot of alignment issues that I know can be corrected and probably my students aren't even aware of. Sometimes I'll ask, are you aware that you're doing this? And they're not. So we'll look at some of the common ones today as a way of starting to focus our mind on these kinds of thoughts, on these kinds of observations. We'll also be thinking about getting big and expansive, taking advantage of that big, beautiful, expansive full moon energy. And then once our mind has calmed because of the focus we create during our practice, we can start to draw it a little bit more inward. We'll take a very short pranayama. This is a wonderful precursor to more meditative activities. And as we move into our final shavasana, we should be ready to go and really take advantage of the ability to look within. So before you begin, pause. Take a moment. Think about something that you're trying to manifest. It could be very small or it could be quite large. Something that you can examine using this full moon energy to illuminate some of those things internally that may be holding you back from success. So there will be a few props we need for our practice today. I almost always use blocks, so blocks will be super handy. And in addition, today we'll use a strap. If you don't have a strap, you can use a belt, you can use a scarf. You can work without these props for sure, but you probably won't get the full benefit of the work that we're doing today. So take a second and get your props. Pause now. So assuming you're back, let's begin warming up. Now, one of the focuses of this practice is going to be shining light on some of those dark areas in our practice, some of those areas where maybe we are misaligned. We do things habitually that keep us from getting the full benefits from our practice, but we aren't even aware of it. So, mini lesson here. Your shoulder blades, of course, they're the flat, triangular, almost like a wing on your back, resting against your rib cage. We're going to work with those for a moment. So, retract your shoulder blades. This means draw them together behind you. This will open the chest. You may feel your arms also externally rotate. And then protract your shoulder blades. So separate the shoulder blades, your chest gets short, and your arms internally rotate. So retract, they draw together, heart opens, protract, they draw apart, heart closes. And just move back and forth like that a little bit, practicing that move. As you draw your shoulder blades together, as you retract them, you feel your upper back get strong. And as you separate them, you protract, your upper back widens and stretches. For most of us, stretching our upper back is probably not as helpful as strengthening our upper back. So this is an important thing to think about. All right, finish with your shoulder blades drawing together, protracting, and let's take that into a different position, tabletop. So move your blocks to the very front of your mat, have your strap handy, come into a tabletop, place your fingers close to the front of your mat. We'll just be all ready and prepared to move on. And then retract your shoulder blades. So draw them together, feel your heart lower a few inches towards your mat, and then protract, separate. Feel your chest shorten and your whole heart lift away from the mat. And do that a couple of times. You don't have to go super far. You don't have to explore your full range of motion. Just work small if this is a new movement. Now let's add something else. Separate your shoulder blades and round your spine. So make your whole back body really wide and long. And then draw your shoulder blades together and let your belly drop. Lift your heart, lift your tailbone, lift your gaze. Separate your shoulder blades, protract, round, draw your shoulder blades together, retracting, and come into a back bend. Do that a few more times and start to make this more fluid, even though you may be thinking really hard about your shoulder blades right now. Start to smooth out the movement. Enjoy the movement. Feel the stretch and the strengthening of your cat pose, which is the rounded spine, like this, and your cow pose, which is your back bend. And the next time you round into your cat, pause there. Hold your shoulder blades separated. Let your head dangle. Relax your neck. Feel a little length and space come into your neck. Then retract your shoulder blades. Draw them together. Come into your back bend. Press your hands down and your heart forward. Now round into cat and bring your hips all the way down to your heels. And stand on your knees, lifting your arms high to the sky. Interlace your last 3 fingers. Extend your index finger. I'm going to turn towards you just for a second. And then exhale over towards the right, opening up your left rib cage. Inhale up to center. Exhale to the left. And inhale back to center. Keep your arms by your ears for a moment. I'm turning back. And then slowly lower all the way to child's pose, hips to heels, planting your hands forward. Let's take that sequence again. Inhale, tabletop with a back bend. Then as you exhale, round, empty your lungs, come to that Halloween cat position and bring your hips all the way back to your heels. Stand high on your knees, lifting up. Use your strong core muscles to lift you high. Interlace your last 3 fingers. Exhale over towards the right, opening up your left ribs, and then inhale back to center, and exhale to the left, and then inhale back to center. Separate your hands, and then lower all the way down to child's pose again, planting your hands in front of you. Inhale to tabletop with a back bend. We have a little change here. Curl your toes under. Lift to your first downward facing dog. Pedal your feet. Let your hips sway. And then pause in stillness. Walk your feet forward to your hands and dangle in an easy, soft, knee forward fold. Everything's soft here. You'll feel a stretch along your spine. Bring your hands to your shins. As you lengthen your spine, bring it parallel to the ground and retract your shoulder blades. So draw them together towards your spine. You'll feel your heart open and your upper back get strong. See if you can hang on to this long spine as you fold again. Then lift your arms high to the sky. Join your palms at the very top and glide your thumbs to the heart. Pause here for just a moment. Tadasana, mountain pose. Let's move on. Inhale, lift your arms high to the sky. Exhale, soften your knees and step your right leg way back. Lower your knee and the top of your foot. Bring both hands up to your left thigh and roll your shoulders together and down the back. Lift your arms high to the sky. Alanasana, look up. And then plant your hands and step to downward facing dog. That's that top of a pike position. Then lower your knees to the mat. Come into your back bend. So let your belly drop. Draw your shoulder blades together. Then round, protract the shoulder blades, cat pose. Bring your hips to your heels. Stand on your knees and lift your arms high to the sky and interlace your last 3 fingers. Exhale over towards the right. And inhale back up to center. Exhale to the left. And inhale up to center. Separate your hands, use your strong core muscles to lower to child's pose rather, and then lift your tabletop with a back bend. Curl your toes under and come to your downward facing dog. Soften your knees, look forward and walk your feet forward to your hands. Bring your feet all the way to align with your fingers and then bring your hands to your shins. Long spine, retracted shoulder blades, and fold. Lift your arms high to the sky, join your palms at the very top, and then glide your thumbs to the heart. Let's take that again, other side though. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold. Left leg takes the big step back. Lower your knee and the top of your foot. Bring both hands to your front thigh. Bring your shoulder blades together, retracting, and then lift your arms high to the sky. Perhaps you can gaze up, plant your hands, step back to downward facing dog. Lower your knees, come to tabletop with a back bend. Round your spine, bring your hips to your heels. As you inhale, stand high on your knees. Now this little thing we do with our hands here, interlacing our fingers and exhaling and arcing over to the right, this is called full moon pose. Lift back up to center. And then take that arc over towards the left, opening your right ribs. Inhale back to center. Separating your hands, come to child's pose. Plant your hands in front of you. Inhale, tabletop with a back bend, curl your toes under. Exhale, downward facing dog. Soften your knees, look forward. And on your next exhale, walk your feet forward to your hands. Align your feet with your fingertips. Bring your hands to your shins. Draw your shoulder blades together. Lengthen the spine. And then fold. Lift your arms high to the sky. Join your palms at the very top. And glide your thumbs to the heart. We'll take that one more time. It's a nice, easy variation of a sun. Well, I'm going to say a sun salutation. But I've also heard it called a moon salutation. Let's do it together with a little bit more ease and flow. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold. Right leg takes the big step back. Lower your shin. Inhale, sweep your arms high to the sky. Gaze can rise too, looking up at the moon. Exhale, plant your hands, downward facing dog. As you inhale, lower your knees. Come to tabletop with a back bend. Exhale, round, hips to heels, child's pose. Inhale, stand high on your knees. Interlace your last 3 fingers and exhale over to the right, opening up your left ribs. Inhale, up to center. And as you exhale, arc over towards the left, opening your right ribs. Inhale, back to center. Use your strong core muscles to control the movement as you lower to child's pose. Plant your hands ahead of you. Inhale, tabletop with a back bend. Curl your toes under. Downward facing dog. On your next inhale, soften your knees, look forward, and use your exhale to step your feet forward to your fingertips. Bring your hands to your shins, long spine, strong upper back, and fold. Inhale, lift your arms high. Join your palms at the very top. As you exhale, glide the thumbs to the heart. Last one. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold. Step your left leg way back and lower your knee and the top of your foot. Inhale, sweep your arms high, gazing up. And exhale, plant your hands, downward facing dog. Lower your knees. Inhale to tabletop with the back bend. Exhale, round, hips to heels, child's pose. Stand high on your knees as you inhale. All the way up, and we have our full moon pose. Interlace your last 3 fingers. Exhale to the right, opening up your left ribs. Inhale up to center. Exhale to the left, opening your right ribs. And inhale to center. Separate your hands. Child's pose. Plant your hands ahead of you. Inhale to tabletop with a back bend. Curl your toes under. And exhale to downward facing dog. Let's pause here. Paddle your feet just a little bit more. Really lifting one heel as you press the other heel towards the mat. Then come to stillness and lower your knees. With your strap handy, come onto your back. So just extend your legs, come into what we call like a Supta Tadasana, which is legs straight, hands by your side, and your legs are powered up just as though you were in Tadasana standing. A couple of things to observe here. Here's where we start to shine the light in some areas. If your head does not comfortably rest on the mat, if you feel like you have to tip your head back in order to touch the ground, then that could mean you've got some upper back rounding, and all of this work with retracting the shoulder blades, making your upper back strong, can be helpful in countering that. Now, draw your right knee into your chest. Interlace your hands over your knee and actively pull the thigh in. Here, if you feel your left knee want to pop up, that could indicate a shortness in your hip flexor, the long muscle that we tend to associate with being in the front of the hip. If you can, keep the legs straight. Actively pull your right knee in and keep your left leg straight. That shortness in your hip flexor, if you have it, could contribute to some low back issues because it actually attaches at the low back. So just notice this. Pay some attention. This is all really valuable information. Now, we need our strap. Place your strap over the ball of your foot. And here's where we shine some light on a misalignment I see a lot. Extend your leg, but extend it low to the ground rather than pointing your foot directly up to the sky. Straighten your knee completely. It should feel rigid, and you might already feel a stretch somewhere in the back of your leg. Then slowly start to lift just until you feel like a stretch beginning. Now that may not be as high as you usually go. Don't worry about that. Just be very thoughtful about finding the beginning of a conversation between you and your hamstring. When you feel it, pause and then release an inch or two. And then press back into that tension and then release and press back in and release. Do this a few times. Now here's where sometimes I think we go dark. Sometimes the light's not shining for us and we begin to bend our knee so that we can go further because, oh, that feels so good to feel like I'm so flexible. And yet if you straightened your knee completely and you felt that that knee was totally straight, you probably wouldn't be lifting so far. So try to be honest. Practice with that control and that restraint that says it's not important how far I lift the leg. What's important is what I'm feeling in the hamstring. So with your leg perfectly straight, it allows you to access the entire hamstring. So after a few pauses, let's hold into it. Find your stretch and just stay there for a moment. Let your breath get a little bit deeper and smoother, because our smooth, deep breaths help muscles to relax. A muscle that's tense isn't going to release and stretch. Make certain that your knee is straight. Check in with yourself from time to time. Shine that light in that knee joint. Now bring both ends of the strap in your right hand. Open your left arm out to the left. Let your right leg drop towards the right. If your left hip lifts a little bit, don't worry, but don't go too much further than that. And then lift up. And let's take a few pulses into the stretch and release. Just to that point where you begin to feel the tension, the stretch, and release. Now, don't worry about how far I go. You might be able to go further, and you may not feel like you can go quite as far. All of us have different muscles and different ratio, muscle to bone, so you can work really, really hard at this and still find yourself less flexible than the person next to you on the mat, and it just doesn't matter. After a few pulses, let's pause. Now, extend your right arm really straight. Then open your left arm out to the side and extend it really straight. Extend both legs really straight and make your spine long. Feel like you're inside a big full moon and we're becoming big and expansive. This is a lovely pose to explore that feeling of getting large and expansive, taking up a lot of space and feeling really powerful. Deep breaths in, just filling out your form. Feel that breath flowing from your nostrils to your lungs and out to the tips of your fingers and the soles of your feet. Now with control, lift your leg. Bring your straps into your left hand. Open your right arm to the side. This is going to be tiny. It's not going to be huge. Just cross your leg over the midline and then back up. Now here, really work on keeping your knees straight. Now I'm feeling kind of tight there, so I'm going to actually lengthen my strap, lower my leg a little bit. This is really uncomfortable for some people. If you run a lot, if you're really active, your IT band might be tight. You might feel this even down into the calf or in the hip. It all depends on you. After a few pulses, let's hold the stretch. Notice if your breath gets short or choppy. Your job is to smooth it out and lengthen it. Lift your leg. Soften your knee a tad and release your strap. Keeping your strap handy, let's extend your right foot up towards the sky. Pause here, fire up your low belly, and with control, lower your leg. Now you can bend your knee and place your foot on the mat anytime you feel like you're losing control. Otherwise, slowly lower your foot, extending your leg straight, lengthening it so you feel like your right leg as it lowers is 2 inches longer than your left leg. Draw your left knee into your chest. Interlace your hands over your knee. Actively pull your thigh in towards your chest. Notice any feeling of wanting to lift the right knee off the mat. It's very possible we're not symmetrical. After all, if you drive a car, you are probably not symmetrical. Everything happens with the right foot, the right leg. If you drive a stick, probably even less. Now, take the strap
over the ball of your foot. Now remember, we're extending low and straight. We're being very honest about this, shining a light brightly into how we access our hamstrings if we tend to cheat by softening the knees. So find your first point of tension, release, affirm a straight knee, and then revisit that point of tension, and do that a few times. You might feel that you can go an eighth of an inch further each time, or maybe not. I tend to close my eyes a lot as I practice. By eliminating that sense of sight, it seems like the sense of touch becomes much more honed. So if it helps to close your eyes as you do this, see how that affects the feeling that you're experiencing in this pose. Then let's pause and hold. If you're able to work just to a point of a little bit of discomfort, so this might not feel 100% comfortable, as long as it's not a sharp, hot pain, if it just feels like a little bit of tension, a little uncomfortable, that's good. That means you're making some sort of change. Change always takes us into a place of discomfort. Seeing some of the things that we do, the release valves, our little cheats, can also take us into a place of discomfort. Now, bring both of the straps into the left hand. Extend your left hand up towards your foot as much as you can, elbow straight. We're going to set up for that big, big expansive pose. So drop your left leg to the left till you feel tension, and then just a little lift just to release it. And we'll do this a few times. Just moving into the stretch and releasing, and moving in and releasing. After a few times, let's hold. If your arm isn't straight, assist yourself to straighten your left arm, straighten your right arm. Your right leg is powerful and straight. Get very, very large. Take some deep breaths. Just envision filling yourself with that lunar energy here. Again, right here from your lungs, extending out to the fingers, the feet, the crown of your head. Lift your leg back up and take the strap into your right hand. And here we have my least favorite part of this, but that probably means I need it the most. Begin to cross your left leg over the central line of your body, moving it into that kind of tough IT outer hamstring stretch. You don't have to go super far if you tend to be very athletic and these are tight for you. Know that all you need to do is find the beginning of discomfort, and at that point you're already beginning to make change. When you're ready, just hold and stay there and breathe deeply. And then lift your foot back up towards the sky. Soften your knee. Release your strap. Place it to the side. Extend your leg. Fire up your low belly and slowly lower your leg as straight as you can. Always okay to bend your knee. Bring your foot to the mat if you're losing control. Reach your heel past your other heel. Lift your arms then once your legs are on the mat. Lift your arms over your head and take a big full stretch. And then from this big full stretch, roll onto your belly and prepare for easy cobras. With the tops of your feet on the mat, position your hands by your mid-ribs. Retract your shoulder blades. Here we go. See, I told you this is going to be useful. Strengthening your upper back. Lift your heart. Inhale into your cobra. Exhale, tap your nose down to the mat. Let's do that again. So lift and lower. Now let's do something a little extra here. As your nose comes down, relax your shoulders towards the mat. So your shoulder blades are drawing apart. They're protracting. Draw your shoulder blades together. Inhale, lift into cobra. Exhale, lower. Let your shoulder blades relax. Let's do that a few times. The next time you lift, let's pause. Come to tabletop, curl your toes under. Lift to your downward facing dog. Pedal your feet a little bit, easing out any tension in your hips, the backs of your legs, your spine. And then soften your knees and walk your feet forward. Dangle for a moment here. Now, hopefully your blocks are still waiting for you at the front of your mat. Flip them to the highest level. And now roll on all the way up to standing. Preparing for our next work, come to Tadasana. Inhale, lift your arms high to the sky. Exhale, soften your knees. Take your fingertips to the mat. Step your right leg way back. Heel toe your left foot to the center of your mat, right between your two hands. Make sure you've got a long stance. So scoot your right foot back until you feel a stretch in your hip flexor. Then plant your foot heel to arch. If it's difficult to get your outer foot on the mat, four corners of the right foot evenly on the mat, shorten your stance an inch. Rise, place your hands on your hips, and turn your heart to face the long edge of your mat. Keep your left knee right over your left heel. Lift your arms. Now Virabhadrasana 2, standard pose, but we're going to do it just a little bit differently. The lunar energy is very feminine and nurturing and cooling. So we'll take the palms up. Imagine in your palms, you're holding little orbs, little moons. If that's too much for you, you don't have to. But I actually like that feeling. It's like a feeling of giving, of benevolence. Then, reverse your warrior. So lift your left moon high up to the sky as you lower your right. And then bring your arms, your shoulders level again, and just tap your left hand down either to the mat or to a block right on the outside of your left foot. And sweep your right arm up and over by your ear. Then we'll reverse that. So we're going to make a reverse warrior 2. And then coming into a side angle. And fluidly move like this. Try to keep your legs very still, building some stamina and strength in the legs as you flow in your upper body. The breathing pattern I use here is to exhale as I lower and inhale as I lift into my reverse warrior 2. Nice and fluid, thinking about that easy, feminine, nurturing energy. The next time that you rise into your reverse warrior, come back to your arms level, shoulders level, place your hands on your hips and straighten your front knee. Shorten your stance, just about 6 or 8 inches, and then straighten your knees completely. So pay attention to this front leg. I often see this, neither here nor there. We're committing to 2 straight legs. Begin to tip your pelvis until you feel the stretch in your inner thigh of your left leg. The back leg should be internally rotated. So if you're feeling any kind of impingement, consider lifting your heel and moving it away just a tad. That might buy you a little more space. And then make sure that you're long here. Don't cheat this. Here's shining a light on the darkness. I see a lot of people rounding and C-curving their spine in order to achieve a shape that they think is going to be beneficial. The real benefit comes in the restraint of keeping the spine long. Lift your top arm high, and let's make some big circles. So first, go for that circle towards your head, down, towards your hip, and up. Like you're drawing a big full moon. Yes, I'm going to reference that a lot. And then let's switch the direction of our big circle. So head to hip. And after you make a few of these, sweep your hand behind you, rest your knuckles on your left hip, and draw your heart up towards the sky. Maybe your gaze can go up too, if that's easy enough on your neck. And then look down. Bend your front knee, your left knee. Flip your block to the highest level. Lift your back heel and just start tapping your foot forward and move your block forward and a little bit off to the left so you've got a really nice base. Pause, just let your foot hover for a moment. Now you can stay right here if your balance is compromised. If you're able to lift, do that. Maybe you're able to lift your right arm high. And again, just like we did when we're laying on our back, let's get super expansive. This is Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. Look down. Take your top hand, your right hand to your hip, bend your standing knee, and just place your right foot on the mat next to your left one. Come into a soft kneed forward fold. Create some ease here. Again, that lunar energy is one of ease. Solar energy is very hot and building and productive. It's the lunar energy that revitalizes us and nurtures us. Slowly start to stack your vertebrae one by one by one by one. And you're ready for side two. I'm going to come to the other edge of my mat so that I don't have my back to you. And then find Tadasana. Inhale and lift your arms high. Exhale, soften your knees, take your fingers to the mat, and step your left leg way back. Find that feeling of stretch in the front of your hip. Replant your right foot centered between your two hands, and from a long stance, plant your left foot. Try not to shorten it unless you need to. Lift your upper body, place your hands on your hips, and align your shoulders right over your hips. Lift your hands, turn your palms up, come into a soft Virabhadrasana. Pause here for a moment. It's always okay, if your balance is good, to close your eyes and just sort of feel the pose. Feel it from the inside out. Imagine that weight, or perhaps you imagine it as lightness, like a light orb in your palms. And reverse your warrior. So lift your right arm high, lower your left arm, and then coming back to level, lower your right hand down to the mat, sweep your left arm up and over. You can also use a block. Come back up. We'll do this a few times. Allow this to be very fluid, and be aware of how you're using your core strength, the muscles that wrap your torso as you move. Keep stillness in your low body. You'll create definite strength in your hips and your hamstrings and your quadriceps. The next time you come up into your reverse warrior two, pause there. And then bring your shoulders over your hips. Place your hands on your hips and straighten your right knee. Shorten your stance. The reason I shorten my stance, and perhaps you like it long, that's okay, is so that I don't get any impingement here in the back of my heel, the back of my ankle, the Achilles tendon. Make sure you've got an internal rotation in your left foot. Begin to lower your right hip. Find the tension in your hamstring. Extend your arms. When you feel like that is gone far enough, you've got a good tension and it's stopping you from going any deeper, and you're keeping your spine long, just take your hand wherever it goes. Maybe you can get it to your block. I can't quite, and I'm okay with that. Extend your top arm high. Fill out Trikonasana, triangle pose. Bring your bicep to your ear and then sweep your arm down to your hip and up. Drawing a big full moon, big expansive moon with your arm. Switch the direction of your circles. Make one more full and complete circle, and then bring your hand behind you, resting your knuckles on your right hip. Let your shoulder blade retract and lift your heart up towards the sky. Now position your left hand on your left hip and look down at your foot, bending your right knee. Flip your block to the highest level. As you start to take weight on your right foot, let the block move forward a little bit off to the right. Now you can always stay and just play with balance here. This is a good place to be. Or you can lift your leg and fill out your pose, half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. Again, thinking about getting big and expansive. Bring your top hand back to your hip and start to turn your heart and belly to face the mat. Just place your left foot back down. Come into a soft kneed forward fold. Grabbing your blocks, come up to standing and then turn so that you're facing the long end of the mat and place your blocks forward. With your hands on your hips, separate your feet. Turn your toes out. Now, separate your feet. A good rule of thumb is to turn your fingers down once you extend your arms and feel as though your ankles are underneath your fingers, if you had a plumb line going down. That's a good wide stance. Take a bend into your knees. Bring your palms together at the heart. Then, sweep your arms up and straighten your knees. Bend your knees, swoop your hands down to the mat. Lift and straighten, and bend and swoop, and get really big and expansive. Breathing pattern here. Inhale as you straighten and lift, and exhale as you contract, as you fold. The next time your hands come down, bend your knees and take your hands to your blocks and turn your toes forward. Bring your spine parallel to the mat. Retract your shoulder blades, draw them together, And to any degree you can, straighten your knees. Lift your tailbone and let your heart come down. Now I'm going to turn because I want to show you something. And what I see frequently is rounding in the upper back. So if people cannot quite make their goal, which might be to have their hands down to the mat, and if their hamstrings aren't going to allow that kind of a fold, they'll round. Now remember, yoga is molding. We're remolding our body. So think very carefully about what sort of shape you'd like to mold. I would suggest coming up, lifting a little bit, regardless of how you feel, and experiment with retracting the shoulder blades and lifting your tailbone up. So rather than tucking the tailbone, separating the shoulder blades like cat, lengthen, lift, and then maybe you can fold a little bit deeper. This is all shining spotlights, shining the light on areas of your practice that maybe you haven't been working as efficiently, as well as you can. And it could be standing in the way of the progress that you'd like to see. Sometimes we wonder why we work and work and work and we aren't actually making any headway. This full moon is such a wonderful time to visit that and see what's really standing in our way. In our yoga practice, it might be as simple as the retraction of the shoulder blades, the tilt of the pelvis, or the position of the knee. Now I know I turned. You didn't have to, of course. You should be right where you were. And I think we can all meet up together by lifting our upper body until it's parallel to the mat, until we don't feel like we have any hamstring stretch. So you might have to come up a slight bit higher than that and heel toe your feet until they're about 3 feet apart. Turn your toes out and drop your hips between your heels. Now I know this does not work for everybody. So if this is a pose that doesn't work for you, just sit down for a moment. We're only going to be here a moment. You are not going to miss much. Just going to pause here if we can. And then, I promised you, bring your hips down. Sweep your feet off to the side. Come onto your belly. I have a modification here if this stretch is difficult. Bend your left knee, reach back, take a hold of your foot, press your hips into the mat, draw your heel in. Some people can't quite reach their ankle. So for you, you'll roll on to your right side. Bring your knee forward so you can easily find your ankle. But then try to bring the knees back into alignment again. Push your top hip forward. That's a very, very nice modification. I'm going to come back onto my belly. You can stay here if this is where you're working. Keep pressing your pelvis down. A cheat here is to relax and let the pelvis rise, and then, oh yeah, I can touch my heel to my hip, as if there's a prize for that. Press your pelvis deep into the mat so that you're feeling a deep stretch in your quadricep. That's where the prize is in opening up these large muscles on the front of your thigh. Okay, release your foot. Come onto your belly if you're modifying. And then if you're modifying, roll on to your other side so that you can grab your foot. Everyone else, press your pelvis into the mat. Grab your other foot and pull it towards your heel, your hip to any degree that you can. Release your foot. Everybody meet on the belly. Place your arms by your side and bend your knees. Retract your shoulder blades, drawing your shoulders up and away from the mat. Press your hips down. Lift your thighs. Lift your heart. Lift your hands. Reach your hands back, but don't grab your ankles yet. This is a huge strengthening pose. It's also a very good modification if you do struggle with finding your ankles or feet in a full Dhanurasana or bow pose. Lower, let your shoulders relax, and just drop your feet. Just relax, stacking your hands maybe, and soften. Now in our next bow pose, you can do that same thing again. So if grabbing your feet is an issue for your knees or your low back, just do the same pose again. But if you're able to bend your knees and reach back and grab your ankles or your feet, do that if that feels okay. And then everybody retract your shoulder blades, press your hips down, inhale, lift your thighs, lift your heart. Now here's a place where we can shine a little light. If you find yourself separating your knees, you might feel like, oh, I can lift really high, but you're not getting the same stretch in your chest as if you bring your knees and your feet a little bit closer together. You can experiment with that carefully, separating and then drawing your inner leg lines together. And then lower, relax. I don't know if you can see, I got a little black fly that seems to want to practice with me. Let's take one more Dhanurasana or bow pose. Do this very gently. Remember, we're working with lunar energy today, so this should feel like, just nurturing and soft, and try to create that feeling of making this feel good and fluid. Like water energy. Imagine that you're flowing with this pose. Breathe into your belly and allow a little bit of movement. Whether you're taking hold of your feet or not, lift your shoulders away from the mat, press your hips down, and then inhale as you lift. Take deep breaths, allow yourself to just kind of move and be fluid and flowy. And release. And rest for a moment. We're starting to slow down a little bit. And so we can begin to make our mind a little bit more introspective, drawing our focus more inward, even deeper than the physical level. We've been thinking about hamstrings and knees and shoulder blades. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, press to tabletop. Have your hands closer. Well, let's actually, right in the middle of the mat is fine for this. Slide your right knee forward, right by your right thumb. If you have a full pigeon in your practice, and that's what you prefer, you can do that. You can use a blanket under your hip or your block under your hip to pad it. I'm going to cue something a little different, but A-okay, we're going into our pigeon or pigeon variation, so you decide. Coming along with me, this is a great variation if you have knee issues. Sit all the way down on your right hip. Open your knee so you have a 90-degree angle in your leg. So my shin aligns with the short edge of my mat and my thigh aligns with the long edge of the mat. Your back leg is comfortable behind you. Again, we're looking for the sensation of stretch in the hip and maybe a little bit of twist in the belly. So bringing your hands forward, let's take that twist, drawing the navel towards your front thigh, and then lower your forearms down. Use your block perhaps under your head or under your chest. And if you're not feeling a stretch in your hip here, you can bring your top hand to your top hip and kind of push it downward so that you're increasing the angle between your pelvis and your right femur, and that should help facilitate a better stretch in your right hip. So use your block, your blankets anyway, and if you've got the full pigeon that you're doing, you can do that too. And just settle in and soften. Close your eyes. At first, let's simply try to still the mind. So bring your attention to your breathing. Make certain that it's deep, a comfortable depth. And then begin to make your exhales a little bit longer than your inhales. Focus on this, and with each exhale, envision extra busy thoughts, thoughts that you've thought many times before, are just being released with each exhalation. As you settle in, if you're in this variation, the twist may also help release tension in your low back. It's a good pose. If a busy thought enters your mind, if a thought asks for your attention, just exhale it away with the breath. Now, begin to lift your upper body. If you're sitting on your hip, draw your ankle in. And if you're in your full pigeon, remove any padding and come seated on your hip. So you're just about here again. And then bring your back leg forward and cross your legs. With your hands on your shins, bring your right hand to your left knee. With your left hand behind you, sit up very tall and use your hand on your knee to very gently guide yourself into a seated twist. You might find that the tension you're releasing here is more in the middle and upper back. Let your heart come forward again. Now, sweep your right leg behind you. If you want to come into your full pigeon, if that's in your practice, you can do it now here on this left side. Otherwise, stay with me for the variation. We have a 90-degree angle in our front leg. That's super important. That helps protect the knee. Your shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat. Bring your hands forward. Take your twist in the belly. Lower your forearms. Use your blocks so that you can relax. If you find yourself fidgeting a lot in this pose, that might shine a light on your tendency to not want to stay still. Tell yourself here that this stillness is going to be of value. And use your breath to clear your mind of thoughts that you can always come back to thinking later. Perhaps set an intention at the beginning of your practice. Perhaps there's a goal that you're trying to achieve or something that you're trying to build. And you know that this midway point in the lunar cycle is valuable. As you quiet your mind, ask yourself the question, what is standing in my way of achieving my goals? And then, with this quiet mind, just notice if any thoughts bubble up. You do not have to hang on to any thoughts that aren't interesting. You can exhale them away. But if something bubbles up that you really like, by all means, perhaps work with it just a bit. Chew on that. Just a few more breaths. Begin to lift your upper body. If you aren't sitting on your left hip, do that now. Bring your right leg forward, cross your legs with your right shin in front of your left shin. Your right hand behind you. Bring your left hand over to your right knee, sit up very tall. Gently pull yourself into the twist, releasing tension in your middle and upper back. And then release your heart forward. Sit on a block or on your folded blanket so that you're comfortable. If neither of those is comfortable, sit in a chair for a moment. Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, just for a moment. Close your eyes and take your second and third fingers of your right hand and place it right between your two eyebrows. Second and third fingers resting between your eyebrows. With your fourth finger, you'll open and close your left nostril. With your thumb, you'll open and close your right nostril. Finish an exhalation. At the bottom of your exhale, close your left nostril and inhale through your right. Pause at the top. Close your right nostril, open your left, and exhale. Inhale through your left nostril. Close your left nostril, open your right, and exhale. Inhale through your right nostril. Close your right nostril, open your left, and exhale. Inhale through the left. Close the left, open the right, and exhale. Now continue like that a few more rounds on your own. So it's an exhale, an inhale, and a switch. An exhale, inhale, switch. Just for a few more rounds. See if you can stay here, work with this, even if your mind feels a little bit jumpy. Just focus on the sensation that you're creating. Now your next round through your left will be your last on that side. You'll exhale and inhale. And as you open the right nostril, exhale through the right nostril. Then keep your eyes closed, lower your hands, breathe evenly through both nostrils. Nadi Shodhana is a balancing breath, so it helps balance your lunar and your solar energy. This is kind of like left brain, right brain, passive, active, masculine, feminine. It's just a good pranayama for helping to balance the energy in our body. Keep your mind quiet and make your way onto your back. If you need anything to be comfortable in Shavasana, blankets, bolster under your knees, a pillow under your head, go ahead and get that now. Have it handy. The first thing we'll do is just draw the knees into the chest, circle the knees, nice and easy. Then point the soles of your feet up towards the sky with your knees bent. You can take a hold of the backs of your legs and pull your knees down. You can also hold your ankles or calves. If you're flexible, you can grab the outer feet, pull your knees down towards your armpits. Whatever you do, make certain there's no strain. Any movements that feel good, do that now. And then lower your feet, come down into Shavasana. Our practice helps to quiet our mind. We spend the time focusing our mind so that when Shavasana comes, the mind's in a position, a condition to be able to stay quiet. Now, that might not be your situation, so you can always contemplate. Direct the focus of your thoughts. Think about the intention that you set at the beginning of your practice. This idea of a cycle and what you're trying to build in this moment in time, where things standing in our way may be illuminated. To draw your thoughts inward rather than outward. Instead of thinking about what's going on outside that may be standing in your way, look within to your own thoughts, beliefs, habits, mental limitations. Begin to deepen your breath. Bring some movement into your fingers and into your feet. Make your movements larger. Maybe a big full body stretch. When you're ready, bend your knees and roll onto one side. Keep your eyes closed as you press yourself up to seated. Bring your palms together at the heart. So remember, this full moon energy is a wonderful time of illumination, a wonderful time to look within and to use this energy to shine some light on those areas that may feel hidden to us, mostly because we really aren't comfortable acknowledging or working with them. This full moon can also be a reminder that this work can and probably should be done anytime that we feel as though our mind is receptive and flexible and open enough to do what could be some uncomfortable work. Give yourself a deep inner bow for attending to your practice today, and I thank you for sharing your effort and your energy with me. Namaste. I hope the bullfrogs weren't too big of a distraction for you. They seemed to know exactly when we were going into Shavasana and decided that that was the time to really sing. So thank you very much for your practice, and I will see you soon.